Okay, great. It's more like herding cats than it is in previous years. I'm actually glad we have a talkative crowd, and I hope that we'll continue to carry on into questions to speakers and panelists, and so on. Okay, so our next speaker is John Summers, who is a Senior Vice President of Applications and Service Infrastructure at AT&T, which he joined in 1989. He's held numerous leadership positions in operations, product management, technology development, and sales. Prior to his current role, he led product and technology development for wireless voice, data, and messaging services. And today he's responsible for developing AT&T's applications portfolio, cloud service capabilities, and supporting platforms and infrastructure. He leads a team of engineers, development, and testing professionals around the country in Redmond, Atlanta, New Jersey, and Dallas. And we're fortunate that he was able to make a stop between these many places to speak with us here today. So, John, please.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and spend some time with this group today. And for a technologist, it's great to be in the room and having some dialogue with folks that are really shaping technology policy. So for me, it's fascinating, hearing the debates and the interaction, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you. Before I jump into my presentation, I wanted to actually ask for your support on a campaign that AT&T just recently launched regarding safe driving. And we're taking a very, very aggressive position around no texting while driving. So I've got some stickers for you here that you can give to your kids or you could put in your car to remind yourself that it's not safe to text while driving and it can wait. Okay? So I'm going to just ask you to pass these around. What's that?
They go up right on the windshield in front of the car.
Exactly, exactly. My son gets 2 of them. There you go. That's right. And take the pledge. There is a website that we can provide to you where you can all go in and pledge your commitment to no texting while driving. I've already actually had my that's right, itcanwait.com. Okay, so I wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you about the innovation strategy, our innovation platform at AT&T, and in some of the discussions this morning, you heard a lot about what are the carriers doing to enable innovation, what are we doing to enable developers, enable the over-the-top web companies to innovate on top of our network. So I'm going to talk to you specifically about what we're doing in these areas. And I want to focus on how we're opening the network, how we're providing tools to innovators and developers, how we're radically changing our own product development process to be more engaging and supportive of innovators who are trying to build the next best application on top of our network. Here we go. Okay. So we've been on a journey over the last few years really to transform our approach to innovation. And it starts with the network and how we architect the network, but it also encompasses how we engage developers, how we engage partners, and how we promote and incent them to innovate on top of our network. So the program, the innovation program at AT&T has these 4 primary objectives, but overarching all of this is a very aggressive focus that we have on doing what we need to do, taking the steps that we need to take to really accelerate the pace of innovation, both inside of our company as well as within the ecosystem of partners, of customers, of businesses around us. So 4 key objectives that are part of this program. The first is opening the network. So traditionally, our networks were built years ago from the standpoint of where a network capability, a platform capability was purpose-built to a specific service that we delivered to customers. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more about this, but essentially what that implied is that we generally built services in smokestacks, and the platform capabilities were very difficult to access, very difficult to leverage, with the exception of our own finished products and services that we deliver to customers. By opening the network, what we're doing is essentially taking the core enablement, kind of the core foundation of our network, the core foundation of our platform, and exposing those capabilities as web APIs so that anybody on the planet can essentially innovate over the top of our network. Okay, so that's a key cornerstone here. The second is cloud enabling our business and cloud enabling our customers. And the cloud has a lot of different meanings, a lot of different definitions to a lot of different people. In this context, what it means is that rather than deploying products and services and platform capabilities on purpose-built, dedicated infrastructure, we're moving our assets, moving our platform capabilities to a cloud environment where we leverage multi-tenant, essentially multi-tenant infrastructure to get economies of scale, economies related to leveraging shared assets, right? And this has a lot of benefit in terms of cost to deliver service, time to deliver service for our customers. The third point here, changing the collaboration and service delivery models. So historically with companies like AT&T and other carriers, we've partnered in a way that was very much a kind of customer vendor centric model. But in order to really accelerate change and enable innovation, we had to change that model. So we still work with quite a lot of suppliers to help enable our roadmap, enable our network, but our focus has really shifted to a point where we're advocating for developers to really come in and enable services and capabilities on top of the network, and giving those developers tools and access to our resources, access to our architects, access to our engineers, so that we can help them be successful in enabling applications and services on top of the network. And then finally, our focus is on giving the broadest degree of choice to our consumers, our business customers, in terms of devices and applications that are available on the network. So that obviously has a direct impact on the devices that we source into our portfolio, but it also has an impact in terms of how we expose the platform in ways that make it easy for application developers to innovate on the network. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of these in a little bit of detail. So tactically, our innovation platform has four primary focus areas. We have a long history of innovation in the lab with several thousand engineers focused on delivering next generation technology, and that's an important cornerstone that we've built this program on top of. But three new capabilities that we've essentially deployed here over the last couple of years are, first of all, our Foundry. If you're not aware of the Foundry, the AT&T Foundry, essentially we've set up three innovation centers, one in Palo Alto, one just outside of Dallas, and then the third is in Ra'anana, Israel. And these innovation centers aren't your typical innovation center focused on demonstration of capability or essentially showcasing technology. These are work centers where AT&T engineers, AT&T marketers, and developers, technology partners come together to innovate and collaborate in a new way, right? So the traditional, if you think about a traditional product development model, a traditional model would suggest that a marketer does research, assesses, opportunity in the marketplace, documents a set of requirements, hands that off to an engineer who goes through a design process, an architecture. We develop a capability, we test and deploy, right? And our average cycle time, historically, in this kind of a model, to deliver a new product to market is 18 to 24 months. In the foundry, the model is a lot different. First of all, when you walk into the foundry, what you find is there are no offices, no cubes, everything's on wheels, and work groups, including marketers, engineers, IT professionals, are congregated around projects working in a very agile model, right? Ultimately, the goal with the foundry, and I'll talk a little bit more about some specific results, but the goal with the foundry is to take that 18 to 24 month cycle time and compress it down to 6 months. Okay, the next component of our platform, innovation platform, is fast pitch. So it's kind of dovetails off of our, the traditional product development process, where in that very linear model, we would issue an RFP, request for proposal, to a set of suppliers. We'd go through a bidding process, we'd negotiate an agreement, and several months later we'd have a deal, and then we'd work together, collaborate with that partner to deploy the capability. In this fast pitch model, we took some lessons from the venture capital firms, and basically have implemented a capability where we scour the world for the best technology aimed at specific problems or opportunities that we're trying to solve for. We'll bring developers and innovators into the foundry, give these folks an opportunity to pitch their ideas to a group of decision makers, and in 20 to 30 minutes, we'll have a pretty good sense of whether their capability matches a need that we have. So in this shift, we can take what was a several month cycle of evaluating opportunities and technologies and really squeeze this down to a few weeks. And frankly, a lot of the small technology innovators, small companies didn't really or don't really have the financial wherewithal to sustain a multi-month process to engage a large company like AT&T. But in this model, we're able to engage developers and innovators in days or weeks. And for them, it's a much more engaging type model. And then the last thing, the innovation pipeline. We have tens of thousands of employees inside of AT&T. They all have great ideas about where the next opportunity might be, where the next innovation is, whether it's technology innovation or process innovation, business model innovation. And so we've created what we believe is the world's largest suggestion box, essentially, which gives every employee in the company an opportunity to submit their ideas, and through a crowdsourcing, kind of web crowdsourcing model, have the opportunity to collaborate with their peers, enhance their ideas, and have their ideas ultimately voted on by their peer groups and ultimately invested in. So these are the kind of the key tenets of our innovation program. I want to take a little bit more time to kind of dive into this notion of opening the network. So again, historically, our model for developing or delivering an AT&T finished product would have been that a platform capability or infrastructure, think servers and compute capability, was tightly coupled to the network, and platform capabilities, right? Logic that sits on top of servers was tightly coupled to that hardware, to that infrastructure. And on top of that, we built a finished product. And what happened over many, many, many years, decades of executing in this model, is that you end up with a lot of smokestack capabilities where platform and value built into one product isn't easily shared with another product. So we decided a few years ago that we needed to shift this model. So the shift that we've taken is that, again, all of our infrastructure going forward is deployed in a cloud-based model for all of our platforms and products. That cloud, that infrastructure is exposed via a set of APIs, application programming interfaces, which allow platforms to be easily deployed on top of that shared infrastructure, on top of that multi-tenant infrastructure. And then our platform capabilities are then exposed as APIs so that our developers, my developers, can build a finished product. But just as easily, any Silicon Valley application developer or Israeli application developer or essentially anybody with a great idea who needs access to a network service or a network platform can build an application using web APIs. So rather than a model where a developer or a partner may have taken months to build an app on top of our network or optimize an app on top of our network, using these APIs makes for a much more efficient ecosystem, if you will. So a good example of this work in terms of an approach that we've taken with one of our products. So we launched a product, hopefully many of you are customers of, called Uverse, which is our IPTV service several years ago. And Uverse was one of the first products that we built in this platform-centric model. And so what that enabled was for us, AT&T, to build a finished product, a finished application on top of our Uverse IPTV platform, but it also enabled us to expose that platform as an API to web developers. So now there are a lot of applications built by others that allow you to leverage the core assets, the core platform assets that exist, to take an experience off your TV in your home to a mobile device, for instance, or for you to share video that you may be running on your tablet in your home with your TV system in your home, right? So these are the kinds of use cases that are possible and innovation that's possible in taking this kind of platform API-centric approach. So when we started this journey, we had in 2008, 2009, we did expose some of our capabilities in this model, but very difficult to use. Services weren't exposed as web APIs. They were exposed as kind of telecom-centric services that web developers really had a hard time using. And at that point, we had messaging, SMS and MMS exposed as services, location exposed as a service, certain billing capabilities exposed as a service. And against those platforms, we're seeing about 300 million transactions a month. As we've opened this up and added more services to this model, we're now seeing actually, around 5 billion transactions a month. And I noted here the latest service that we've offered is a speech translation service that historically was developed as the engine supporting certain IVR applications for enterprise customers, but we took that platform and now have it exposed as an API. So anybody, any web developer who needs a translation capability built into their application can call a web API and leverage this solution. A couple focus areas for us on the roadmap here. There was mention in the last panel a discussion about quality of service. So you could imagine a scenario where we could expose an API to a developer who has a video application, who may have different encode schemes built for their application. And based upon the specific network conditions at the moment the user requests the video, they could call an API, understand the network conditions, and in real time deliver a video experience that's best suited for those specific network conditions. Right? So that has value to developers. It has value to the users of that application. Another example might be calling quality of service. So again, a video example where perhaps a user wants an upgraded or enhanced video experience on the wireless network, and the developer can call to a higher QoS setting real time. Right? That might be another example. Another example, call control or call management capabilities. The dialer and the call management services that we deliver have always been tightly coupled to an AT&T service. But think about a small web developer who wants to embed call control or the ability to place a call or set up a conference call into their application. So we will expose, over time, call management as a set of APIs that give them the ability to innovate. So, you know, the key takeaway here is that we recognize that there are innovators around the world who, hundreds of thousands, millions of developers who are building great services, and we needed to shift our model to open the network, to be more collaborative, and to provide these developers tools that allow them to deliver new and innovative services to our customers. So go back to the Foundry. So I mentioned we launched the Foundry about 2 years ago. We put together a set of partnerships with some key partners of ours, namely Ericsson, Alcatel-Lucent, Amdocs, Cisco, Juniper, and Microsoft. And together with these companies, we've invested roughly $100 million in building out the facility and putting the technology in place and opening the platforms. And through this scouting process that I mentioned before, our partners, these 6 companies and AT&T, as well as some venture capital partners that we have over the last year and a half scouted over 2,000 companies around the globe. And these companies are scouted against specific areas of focus for us, right? Problems we're trying to solve, new products that we're trying to deliver or develop. And so we've scouted these companies, and out of that screening process, brought in 600 companies that went through this speed dating process, right? So these companies have an opportunity to get in front of a group of decision makers and take 15 or 20 minutes to pitch their ideas. And at the end of that session, we make a decision. It's either we're not ready, this isn't a fit, or we'll bring you into the Foundry and engage in a project. And so out of that, we've started actually a little over 60 projects. We've launched 14 new services or new platform capabilities, and we've improved our cycle time from that 18 to 24 months to, on average, about 6 months using this kind of model. One of the other things that happens in the Foundry, so I talked about our platform and our APIs. So we're spending a lot of time building relationships with different developers, different developer communities. And one of the companies that we have been working with is Facebook. And we have a Foundry location right in the middle of Palo Alto. Facebook's down the street. And so we have put our teams together to conduct what we call a hackathon, where we bring in developers, in this case a couple hundred Facebook developers and some of their partners, to spend 24 hours essentially innovating on our APIs. So we've done about 75 of these events, 4,000 developers, in this case, you know, a couple hundred Facebook developers. And the primary focus of these events has been on education. So we've actually done some hackathons. In fact, last week I was in Plano, and there was a 2-day marathon hackathon occurring with a group of graduate students from schools around, engineering students from schools around the Dallas area. But this has been a big success for us because developers are more and more starting to understand when we say open network, when we say APIs, they're now starting to understand what that really means. And by us exposing these capabilities as web APIs, we're starting to speak their language. Forever we spoke telecom, and now we're starting to speak web. And it's starting to really create a lot of momentum in terms of new innovation on top of the network. I wanted to share a quick video before we start that, just to give you a little bit of background. This is one of the proof points of the Foundry. So this is one of the 14 projects that we've launched. And I was with a group of folks. We were in Israel visiting some companies, actually listening to fast pitches, and we met a company called Intucell who had they hadn't really fully built out their capability yet, but they had a really interesting approach to solving an issue that exists in our wireless networks, and that is, the performance of a particular, the performance of a network in a particular location can often be impacted by, the number of users that are hitting a particular sector, right? So even though we might have surrounding cells, if one particular cell is congested, it degrades performance, even though there might be adjacent cells with plenty of capacity. So our current model, or our prior model, would have been, we send out a group of engineers, and they go through a set of steps to rehome usage and traffic to neighboring sites. This company, Intucell, had a mechanism, an algorithm to solve for that real time, right? So why don't you go ahead and shoot the video, and this will give you an idea of how we engaged this company.
Every month, the amount of traffic on the AT&T network continues to grow, especially with more customers who are using data-intensive smartphones and tablets. So, the AT&T Foundry, together with Intucell, has developed a product to help ease the overcrowding. It's called Self-Optimizing Network, or SON for short.
Here's one way that it works.
The SON detects when too many users are connected to a single tower, and when users are operating on the very edge of a tower's coverage area, which can make for weaker signals. Intucell's SON then instructs nearby cells, which aren't being heavily used, to expand and help cover some of the users on the overloaded cell. That allows the overloaded cell to shrink. SON does this automatically in real time, rather than requiring manual adjustments from human operators. So each cell's coverage area expands and contracts to make sure users in the region have the best coverage. By the middle of this year, the technology will be deployed across AT&T's network.
Okay, so that's a company that we met on a speed date. These guys pitched for 20 minutes. 2 days later, we decided that we had something here, and we engaged them over a several-week period to really do some deep analysis. Following that, we had them working with us on a trial in San Francisco, and 3 months after that, we were beginning a commercial deployment into our network. So that's a big shift in terms of cycle time, in terms of engagement and collaboration with these small and innovative companies. And that's the kind of work that's happening in the Foundry. Okay, just a couple more points on the TIP program, the Innovation Pipeline. I mentioned what this is about, essentially a very large-scale crowdsourcing capability that gives every employee in the company an opportunity to submit their ideas, have their ideas collaborated on with their peers. People vote on ideas. Some ideas drop out, some ideas rise to the top, and ultimately those ideas that rise to the top have an opportunity, their sponsors have an opportunity to come into a group of decision makers and pitch it and get funding. And so we have 130,000 people that are participating in this process, and over the last year and a half or so, we've committed $27 million in projects and have already started to see the fruits of this approach. One of the applications that we launched in conjunction with the texting and driving campaign that I mentioned a little bit ago is an app we call AT&T Drive Mode. So this was submitted by a customer representative in Detroit. Had this great idea, her peers loved it, she had an opportunity to pitch it, and and as a result, we've launched it as a part of this campaign. But it's a simple app that gives you an opportunity to, manage interaction between your device and others while you're driving, right? So you can shut down texting, deliver an auto reply back to the sender that I'm driving. So it's a fairly simple app, but a very important app as a part of a broader program that we've launched around texting and driving. So, what does this all mean? So open innovation, open networks, collaboration, best possible range of devices and applications running on our network translates into a huge amount of growth. For us, 20,000% wireless data growth over the last 5 years and carrying over 30 petabytes of data on our backbone every day. So significant implications in terms of kind of how we invest and how we move the business forward. I just finished on a slide here focused on kind of how we're addressing that demand. So we've invested last year over $20 billion across our wireless and wireline deployments. And these are three important areas. So there's a significant emphasis within AT&T on deploying Wi-Fi networks and leveraging that both to expand coverage as well as an opportunity to offload networks and provide a good performance experience in various venues. So there's a big focus there. Obviously, significant focus on 4G and completing our LTE deployment. And then finally, application optimization. So we have a very focused effort underway to help developers to optimize their applications so they're more efficient running on our network and more efficient in terms of battery or resource consumption on the device. I think I saw somebody from Pandora on the agenda this week. Pandora is actually one of the companies that was the first user of our tool we call ARO, Application Resource Optimizer. And with Pandora and with others, what we do is we give them insights into how that app is consuming resources and give them tips through this app on how they can better optimize to reduce load. Deliver a great experience, but reduce load on the network. So we've open sourced that tool. We put it out into the community as a free solution so the developers can leverage it. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what we're doing, what we're up to at AT&T in terms of innovation and enabling developers to be more creative, to be more innovative as they leverage our network for their applications. And I think perhaps there's a couple minutes to take a couple questions.
Right, and also if the speakers for the next panel could come up while we're taking questions, I think that would help. Also, because I think you need to be mic'd while we're doing it. So, questions? Yeah, back there.
The TIP program, is that exclusively for small businesses or any business? How can I represent, my company represents women-owned businesses, 11,000 of them, and this would be a great opportunity for sort of a matchmaker type of thing. And how could they get involved with that event, or is there a way to bring it to us? And it seems like a good matchmaking.
Yeah, so the Foundry specifically, the Foundry part of that, we're very active in bringing in different groups of companies and are very open to exploring new relationships. So if you were to see me afterwards, I can tell you exactly how to get engaged. But we have a developer website where you can go and you can submit your ideas and then have an exchange with the folks in the Foundry to bring the ideas in. Yeah. Yeah.
So I get the idea about the APIs in terms of the apps, and you gave good examples of that. I was having a little more trouble figuring out how that would work with an IPTV service. Can you give an example of how someone's built on top of UVerse, something more concrete?
Yeah, so good question. So in the fall of last year, we opened up UVerse to a handful of applications. First of all, we're using these same APIs to provide a mobile experience with UVerse. So that's how we did that. But the third-party stuff, imagine a scenario where you're watching your favorite show on TV, and then based upon us exposing data, right? There could be a way for you to interact with the movie or interact with your peers, your social group, who may also be tuned in to the same show, right? So on your tablet, watching the show, assuming you opt in, and we work through all of that, you could be watching the show, having a kind of a community event around it, or around the football game, right, where you're messaging back and forth through some third-party application. But that's made possible because we've exposed, the guide, we've exposed the information about, what users are tuned into, assuming we have, opt-in support, right, that consumers are opting in. So that's the kind of service.
Okay, John, thank you very much.
Okay.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.